Hi students, welcome to the revision class on second part of module 4, that is cluster analysis and association rule mining. So in today's class we are going to discuss about cluster analysis. What is a cluster? Why these cluster analyses are used and how these clusters are formed, how these are represented and so on. Let us start with the cluster analysis. Cluster analysis is used for automatic identification of natural groupings of things. This is also called segmentation technique, because in this technique, based on some similarities, we are going to divide the data instances or data points into different clusters. So, all the data instances which are very similar will be categorized into one cluster. So, we should find some similarity between the data points, and which are very similar to each other will be categorized into one cluster, and which are not very similar or which are very different will be put in the different clusters. And these clustering are also called unsupervised learning techniques. Why? Because here there is no output or dependent variable for which a right or wrong answer can be computed. In the sense, the technique does not know what should be the output for the given input. The technique does not know what should be the output for the given input. It should learn on its own. There is no supervisor or the guide who can help with the actual output. Therefore, this technique is called unsupervised learning technique. Next comes the applications of cluster analysis. So, as we all know, cluster analysis is used where there is a large variety of transactions. For example, in some banking sectors or e-cart businesses, correct. So, for example, in Flipkart. So, we should find all clothes in the same place and all electronic devices in the other place, right. We do not want those two things to get mixed up. So, here the clothing becomes one cluster and the electronic items becomes the other cluster. So, where there is a large variety of transactions, and also it helps to provide characterization, definition and labels for populations, and also it helps to identify natural groupings of customers, products and patients. So, here there are some examples given for clustering. The first one is market segmentation. In this example, we are going to characterize or categorize the customers based on their similarities, like based on their common wants or common needs. The people who want to purchase electronic items will be put in the electronic category, and the people who want to purchase some clothes will be put in different category. So, this type of clustering is called market segmentation based on the customer wants or the customer needs. And the second example is product portfolio. In this application, people of similar sizes will be grouped together to make small, medium and large sizes for clothing items. So, when you go to purchase some clothes, you must have seen different sections, right? Small, medium and large sizes. So, based on the people heights or people size, the clothing are categorized into different sizes, small, medium and large. So, these type of applications are called product portfolio. And the third application is text mining. In this example, clustering helps to organize a given collection of text documents based on their content similarities. For example, the people who like only political content will be put in one category, right? And the people who like some environmental content will be put in different category. So, based on the text content, clusters will be formed. Then comes the definition of a cluster. What is a cluster? As we have already known, cluster is a group of similar entities or similar data instances, right? So, given a representation of n objects, if there are n objects, we need to find k groups based on measure of similarity. So, we need to form k number of clusters based on some similarity, such that objects within the same group are alike and the objects in different groups are not alike. So, we are given with n number of objects and we have to form k number of clusters where the objects which are very alike will be in the same group and objects which are not alike will be put in the different group. Clusters can differ in terms of their shape, size and density. So, even though we form 3 different clusters from the same data sets, not all 3 clusters need to be same, right, or of same size or shape. It can be of different sizes, different shapes or different densities. And cluster is completely subjective. Why it is called subjective? Because you can see here there are some set of data points given. If I ask you to make different number of clusters using these data points, one person may form 2 clusters, that is this as one cluster and these points as another cluster, and the second person may visualize this in different way and he may form 3 different clusters like this as one cluster and this as another cluster and this as one more cluster. Therefore, it is called subjective. There is no fixed number of clusters. There is no optimal way to calculate the fixed number of clusters. Therefore, in order to interpret these clusters, one should have the domain knowledge. Without the domain knowledge, we cannot randomly choose or we cannot randomly form the clusters. We should have some domain knowledge. What is the science behind it? We should know that first, then only we will be able to form the clusters. Even though we have domain knowledge, not 2 people will form the same number of clusters. They may visualize these data points in their own view and they may categorize these data points into different number of clusters. Okay. Then comes the representation of clusters. How we are going to represent these clusters? These clusters can be represented in either of two ways, central or modal value. If a cluster is represented using central value, then it is called centroidal cluster. What is centroid? It is nothing but the collection of data points belonging to it. It is nothing but the sum of total of square distance from all the points should be minimum. So, if you take any point within that cluster, the sum or the total of square distance from that point to the central point or the centroid should be minimum. So, centroid is like average or mean. You can say it is average of the cluster data points. And the second way is modal value. So, cluster can also be represented by the most frequently occurring value in the cluster. So, the value which occurs repeatedly or most frequently will become the modal value for that cluster. So, there are two ways of representing the clusters. The most commonly used way is central mode. Now, let us discuss about the clustering technique. As we all know, clustering technique is nothing but a machine learning technique where the quality of a clustering depends on three aspects: algorithm, distance function and the application. Let us discuss about the distance function first. Almost all cluster analysis methods use a distance measure to calculate the closeness between pairs of items. So, how closely the two items are related? In order to find the closeness, we need to have the distance measure. In order to find the distance measure or in order to find this closeness, we have two distance measures. Those are Euclidean distance and Manhattan distance. Euclidean distance is the hypotenuse of a right angle triangle. So, it is represented as the hypotenuse of a right angle triangle, whereas the Manhattan distance is the sum of the two other legs of the right angle triangle. I hope you all know what is hypotenuse, right? If at all you do not know, I will tell you. This is the hypotenuse of the right angle triangle and these are the two other legs of the right angle triangle. This is the hypotenuse. So, Euclidean distance is the hypotenuse of the right angle triangle and Manhattan distance is the sum of two legs of the right angle triangle. In either case, the key objective of the clustering algorithm is the same. So, even though we have two different measures, the key objective is same. What are those? The first objective is interclusters distance P should be maximized. What is interclusters distance? If there are two clusters like this, the distance of data points between these two clusters should be maximum. The distance between the data points within these two clusters should be maximum. And the second objective is to have intra-cluster distance P minimized. What is intra-cluster distance? The distance of data points within the cluster. Inter is between the cluster, intra is within the cluster. So, if there are say 3 data points within this cluster, the distance between these data points should be minimum. That is the second objective. The first one is inter-cluster distance should be maximized, and the second objective is intra-cluster distance should be minimized. These are the two main objectives of the distance measures. The most popular clustering algorithm is the K-means algorithm. So, before studying K-means algorithm, let us have the look at generic pseudocode for clustering. Let us have a look at generic pseudocode for clustering. The first step is to pick an arbitrary number of groups or segments to be created. Here groups or segments in the sense cluster. So, we need to randomly choose the number of clusters to be created. Okay. We do not know how many number of clusters we want. So, let us choose 3. Let us say I want to have 3 clusters for my data sets or data points. Second step is to start with some initial randomly chosen center values for groups. So, initially we do not know what is the center value for each group. So, I have told that we have to create 3 clusters. So, for every cluster there should be some center value. Therefore, we have to choose 3 random center values for each group. Understanding? So, if there are 3 clusters, let us choose 3 different clusters. Each one of them should have central value. Therefore, we will choose it randomly. Okay. After that, classify instances to closest groups. Now, we have chosen 3 random central value. Now, based on these 3 central values, we need to assign the remaining data points to one of these cluster. So, let us calculate the distance between this central value and the other data point. So, like this we need to find the distance for each of these central value. The distance between the data point and the center which has the minimal distance, that will have this data point. So, if this distance is smaller than the other two, then this data point will be shifted to this cluster. So, like in this way we have to assign all the data points to any one of these clusters. But this is not the optimal solution. Now, we have to recompute new values for the group centers, because the data points within this cluster has been changed now, right. Therefore, obviously our central value will also change, because we have added some more data points into this cluster. The central value of this cluster will also change, right. Therefore, compute new values for the group centers. So, once you have recomputed the new values for the group centers, we have to reassign the instances also. So repeat step 3 and 4 till groups converge. Converge in the sense the central value should not change any further. That is called converge. If the central value converges or if the central value stabilizes, then we are going to stop the process. If clusters are not satisfactory, in the sense if there is no convergence in the cluster, then we have to go to step 1 and pick a different number of groups or segments. So, we have chosen 3 clusters. For 3 clusters, if clusters won't converge, then we have to choose different number of clusters. We have to choose 4 or 5. We have to try with other numbers. Okay. Yeah. Now we will talk about K-means algorithm. K-means algorithm is the most popular clustering algorithm, which is a top-down approach. And this is based on the minimizing the least square distance from the center points of the clusters. So, our main objective is to minimize the square distance from the center points. Okay. Let us consider one example. Starting with a given number of k clusters, say 3 clusters. So, we need to form k number of clusters. Here we have assumed that k as 3, means I have to form 3 clusters. Thus, 3 random centroids will be created as starting points of the centers of 3 clusters. So, as I have already told, 3 centroids or 3 random centroids will be created, and these centroids should be from the data points you are given with. Okay. So, these circles are initial cluster centroids. Now, for a data point, now let us consider the remaining data points or data instances. For a data point, distance values will be from each of the 3 centroids. So, we need to find the distance value for each of these centroids. So, for that particular data point, what is the distance for each one of these centroids? The data point will be assigned to the cluster with the shortest distance to the centroid. Which has the shortest distance to the centroid? So, data point will be assigned to that cluster. If the data point has the shortest distance to this centroid, then it will be assigned to this cluster. All data points will thus be assigned to one data point or the other. So, in this way, all data points will be assigned to any one of the centroid. In step 2, the centroid for each cluster will now be recalculated. Why this is required? Because now we have assigned some data points to each of the clusters, right? Now, when any data point or any value is being added, its average or mean will also change, right? Therefore, we need to recalculate the centroid such that it is closest to all the data points allocated to that cluster. So, you can see that now the centroid has been moved from this position to this, and this centroid has been moved from here to here, here to here. It means there is a change in the centroid. If the centroid has been moved, then the data point should also be reassigned. The dashed arrows show the centroids being moved from their old values to the revised new values. Once again, data points are assigned to the 3 centroids closest to it. So, the same step we have to repeat here also. We have to find the distance between the data point and each centroid, and the data point will be assigned to the cluster which has the least distance for the data point, correct? Okay, so these two steps will keep on repeating until the centroids stabilize in their locations, means centroids should not move further. If they after 3 or 4 iteration, centroids may stabilize in their location, they may not move any further. So, in such situations we can say that centroids have been stabilized, and these are the optimal clusters for our algorithm. So, if the centroids are not moving any further, then we can call them as the optimal clusters. So, these 3 are the optimal or the resultant clusters for our algorithm. So, this is the pseudo code for the k-means algorithm. What is the input? Input is k, that is how many number of clusters we want to form, that is k. D is the set of data points or set of instances. Output is set of k clusters. So, input is we want to form 3 clusters, output should be the resultant 3 clusters, right. The method is arbitrarily choose k objects from D as the initial cluster centers. So, first step is to choose k objects from D itself. We cannot choose it randomly. We need to choose k objects from D itself. D means set of instances. And repeat. The first step is assign each object to the cluster to which the object is the most similar based on the mean value of the objects in the cluster. So, in this step we are going to find the distance. Most probably we will be using Euclidean distance. So, using Euclidean distance we are going to find the distance between the data points and the different centroids. Update the cluster means, that is calculate the mean value of the objects for each cluster. So, once we have assigned the data points to the particular cluster, we need to recalculate the cluster centroids. So, this process will repeat until there is no change in the centroid. Yeah, let us discuss about some advantages and disadvantages of k-means algorithm. As we all know, k-means algorithm is very simple and very easy to understand, right? And also it is very easy to implement. There is no much complications involved in this algorithm. Therefore, it is very easy to implement. And second advantage is it is also efficient in that the time taken to cluster k-means rises linearly with the number of data points. You can say that you can see that the time taken to cluster k-means increases linearly, it does not increase exponentially. Therefore, it is efficient. Linear increase in the time does not affect much. Okay. And the third advantage is no other clustering algorithm performs better than k-means in general. So, we can say that k-means is the most popular and useful algorithm for clustering. And it also has few disadvantages. The first disadvantage is the user needs to specify an initial value of k. So, before starting with the formation of the clusters, user must know how many number of clusters he want to perform. So, deciding this may become little bit difficult because we have to make this decision at the beginning itself. So, that is one disadvantage, and the second one is process of finding the clusters may not converge. Sometimes centroids may keep on changing their location, they may not converge at all. So, in such cases k-means algorithm will fail. If the clusters are not converging or if the centroids or not stabilizing, then it does not become the optimal solution. Okay. And the third disadvantage is it is not suitable for discovering clusters shapes that are not hyperellipsoids or hyperspheres. So, it is not suitable for the discovering clusters which are not hyperspheres. So, the only one restriction is the clusters should be of the shape hyperspheres. Then only we can use k-means algorithm. Yeah, so that's it for today. So, in the next class we are going to discuss about the association rule mining. So, if there is any doubt in cluster analysis, please contact me.